Okay, before we start the episode, I need to call something out. Abby, how has your week been?
Good. Busy.
Right. And I asked you the same question before we started recording, and you said, also busy.
I mean, it has been busy.
Okay. What specifically have you been busy with?
Okay. I have been doing things. There have been things happening.
Can you name one thing?
I watched a very long documentary, and I reorganized my kitchen, and I replied to some emails that I had been avoiding.
So you were moderately active.
Moderately active, yes. Okay, I see what you are doing.
I am pointing out that when I asked how your week was, you said busy, and what you meant was something more like regular, or maybe even fine with some procrastination.
Because busy sounds better.
That is exactly what we are talking about today. Because I think busy has become the default answer. Not because everyone is actually busy, but because saying busy does something for us. And I want to talk about what that something is.
Okay. And before anyone thinks we are judging, I want to be honest. I say busy all the time. Steve says it too. We all say it. That is kind of the point.
Let us start with something really specific. Think about this exchange. You run into someone you know. They ask, "How have you been?" And you say, "Good, just so busy lately." And they say, "Oh, I know, me too." And then you both nod and move on.
And both of you have given approximately 0 real information.
Right. It is not actually a conversation. It is more like a ritual, a social handshake. And busy is one of the most popular words in that handshake.
Along with fine and not bad.
The interesting thing about busy specifically, and this is what makes it different from fine, is that busy has a status component. Saying I am busy is not neutral. It implies I am needed. I have things to do. My time is valuable.
Oh, that is actually kind of uncomfortable to hear.
Why?
Because I think part of why I say it is exactly that. Like, busy signals that I am a serious person who has a lot going on. Whereas I spent 3 days rewatching a show I have already seen does not signal the same thing.
Even though the second one is honest.
Even though the second one is honest. But honestly, who is going to say that?
So we end up with this situation where almost everyone is saying they are busy, but the actual lived reality of a lot of people is not quite that.
Which is not a criticism, because I think people genuinely feel busy. It is not that they are lying exactly. It is more like the feeling of busy and the fact of busy are 2 different things.
Yes, and that is actually an important distinction. You can feel swamped. That is a great word, by the way. Swamped. S-W-A-M-P-E-D. If you are swamped, you feel like you are sinking, like there is too much water around you. I have been so swamped this week. It means overwhelmed, too much to handle. You can feel swamped even if, from the outside, your week looked pretty normal. Because the feeling of busyness is often about mental load, not just actual activities.
Right. Like, I might only have done 5 things this week. But if I spent 3 days thinking about 12 other things I needed to do, that feels exhausting. That feels busy.
And we do not have language for that, so we just say busy.
Okay, but I think there is also something else going on. Can I say the slightly embarrassing thing?
Please.
I also use busy as armor. Like, if I say I am busy, you cannot ask me hard questions. You cannot wonder why I have not called you back. You cannot ask me to do one more thing. I am so busy is a polite way of saying, I am at my limit. Please do not add to this.
Which is actually really human and understandable.
It is. But the problem is that the people around you do not know that. They hear busy and they think, oh, she has a lot going on. They do not hear, I am actually kind of struggling and I do not know how to say that.
So busy becomes a wall. It keeps people out. And then you feel alone. And then you feel even more tired.
Because you are dealing with everything by yourself while broadcasting that you are fine and just very occupied.
Let us also talk about the social media version of this, because busyness has become a kind of identity online.
Oh, the humble brag. Humble brag. That is when you complain about something in a way that is really showing off. I am so exhausted from all the travel this month. You are technically complaining, but you are actually telling people, look at my full and important life.
And busyness is one of the most common forms of humble brag. I have been so insanely busy, I have not had time to breathe. Which can be genuine, but it can also be a way of performing a certain kind of life.
And once everyone is performing the same thing, it becomes competitive. I have been so busy. Oh, me too. I have barely slept. Wow, I have not had a real weekend in months. It becomes a contest no one actually wants to win.
And yet, we keep playing it.
Why do we keep playing it?
I think there are a few different things happening depending on the person. For some people, it is about worth. If I am busy, I matter. My time has value. I am needed. And there is something underneath that, which is, if I am not busy, what does that say about me?
Like, being unbusy is a little scary, because then you have to sit with yourself. And you have to ask, what am I actually doing with my time? What do I actually want?
And those are harder questions than, how is your week going?
For other people, the busyness is real, genuinely real, but the word has become automatic. They say busy before they have actually checked in with how they are doing. It is just the default output.
Like a reflex.
Like a reflex. And then there is the group I think I am in, at least some of the time. Busyness as deflection. If I say I am busy, the conversation stays on the surface. You ask me a manageable question, I give you a manageable answer, and we both move on and do not have to get into anything real.
Which is sometimes completely fine. Not every conversation needs to go deep.
Right. But the problem is when the deflection becomes so automatic that even when you are with someone you trust, even when it would be good to actually connect, you still say busy and move on.
Okay, so what is the alternative? I want to be practical here, because I am not suggesting that everyone needs to respond to "How are you?" with a full emotional disclosure.
Please, no. Nobody has time for that.
Right, but there is a middle ground between busy and let me tell you everything. And I think the key is just one honest thing. One specific, real thing about your week or your state.
Like, I've had a lot going on, honestly. Or, it's been a weird week, honestly. Or, I'm tired, but okay. Or even, not my best week, but I'm working through it.
These are all short. They do not require a follow-up conversation, but they are real, and they leave the door open for connection rather than closing it.
And you know what? When someone says one honest thing to me, I immediately feel more connected to them than if they say, good, just busy. Because good, just busy could come from anyone. But it's been a weird week? That is a real human being talking to me.
Let us try it. Abby, for real this time. Not busy. How has your week actually been?
Okay, Honestly, I have been a little anxious about something I cannot control, and I have been distracting myself with small tasks and a documentary, and I have been avoiding one conversation that I know I need to have. So, it is not a great week, but I am okay.
Thank you. That is a real answer.
It felt vulnerable to say, even just now, to you.
That discomfort is part of it, because we have practiced saying busy for so long that saying something true feels exposed.
Like you are giving people something they could use against you.
But the reality is, the people who care about you want the real answer. And the people who do not care about you, they were never going to use the information anyway.
So you are only actually protecting yourself from the people who already cared.
Which is a pretty high cost for a pretty small amount of protection.
Okay, here is something I want to try this week. When someone asks me how I am, instead of immediately saying busy, I'm going to pause for 1 second. Just 1 second. And ask myself, what is actually true right now? And then say one honest thing.
One honest thing. Not everything. Just one.
That feels doable.
And if you are listening and you catch yourself saying busy this week, not as a criticism, just as information, it might be worth asking, what am I actually saying? Is it really busyness, or is it something else?
The word you say when someone asks how you are is actually a small window into what you are protecting, what you think sounds good, and what you are not yet ready to say out loud.
Busy is not wrong, but it is worth knowing what it is doing for you.
Okay, thank you all. Take care of yourselves. And genuinely, how are you this week?
Not just busy, we hope.
See you next time!